Hi, I'm Veronica Cisneros, and I am the only one whose marriage didn't stand a chance.
I am Laura Cathcart Robbins. This is the Only One in the Room podcast, but I'm never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, executive producer, and co-host Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hi, honey.
Hey, Hun. So can I just read you a little bit about what our guest says on her website? I think it's really cool. I'm going to read it like in her voice. Is that okay?
Please.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So she says, "Hi, I'm Veronica, your new boss, mom, mentor with no filter and no BS. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, women's coach, course creator, and retreat host, married for over 20 years, raising 3 girls, and the host of the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast."
Very nice.
That's pretty strong, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to
It's a strong opening. Yes. So, Veronica, welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much.
We're so excited to have you. And we met you courtesy of Jillian Teets, who I call Jill, who has the Sober Power Network. And she is just an amazing podcaster and podcast network host or owner or whatever that is that she is.
She's kind of a big deal, right?
She's kind of a big deal. We're actually hoping to see her soon. Scott and I are heading to Boston in a couple months, and we're hoping to hook up with her there. But we saw both of you at Podcast Movement here in Los Angeles earlier this year, and she introduced the two of us. And we just had like a little brief encounter, but it was, it was love at first sight, right?
Absolutely.
Just like you and your husband. And then you invited me on your amazing podcast, and we had a great interview. And I was telling Scott during the interview, I was like, this woman has an incredible only one story, or several, actually.
Let's pick one.
Let's pick one. So I kind of did. I'm going to take you in a direction, but there's a lot of just different aspects to your story that are so robust and so interesting. And I wanted to thank Jill for connecting us, first of all, on the air. So shout out to her. And you remember that, right, Hun? Meeting Veronica there? Yeah.
I don't remember much, but I do remember that.
He doesn't remember names, Veronica.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah.
It's like my search engine can't pick the name out,
Can't
but
compute.
I can remember the details when I get in there.
Yeah. So one of the things when I was talking to you and you mentioned this, you actually sent it to me later in an email, but you're like, oh, where do I start with my story? I mean, we could start with the SWAT team greeting me and my family at gunpoint down my driveway as a child. We're going to talk about your life now and your marriage and, why there was almost a divorce or why it almost didn't. But I want to start with this. And so take us back to that moment and tell us what was happening in your life.
Absolutely. Me and one of my best friends, we were on our way to the mall. Like, I just wanted to go to the mall. Probably didn't have any money to shop, but just wanted to get the hell out of the house. At the time,
how old were you, do you think?
Oh, I had to have been about, probably about 16 years old, 16 years old. And I remember we're walking in the driveway and literally SWAT team comes out of the bushes, and I'm just hands up and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it came as a shock. I'm not sure why it came as a shock, considering, my mom and dad would constantly remind me the phones were tapped. My dad was a hardcore gang member, alcoholic, heroin addict, and he would have meetings at our house. And so the meetings weren't with our friendly neighbors. They were with wanted gang members, murders, you name it. And it was a complete shock. We're at gunpoint, and I guess they knew we had nothing to do with what was going on, but they completely came, they came in the house, and I'm not sure what exactly happened after that, if I even ever got to the mall, but I can tell you it was one of those moments. It was one of those moments where it's like, holy crap, this is real. Everything else that was going on in my life, it was just the norm. Right? Like, my dad's a gang member and he beats up people who disrespect me, like, no biggie, but it was just like, oh, no, for reals. Like our phones are tapped and like people are watching, you know? So yeah, it was just one of these
That's,
surreal moments, but definitely brought me into reality really quickly.
I mean, we've seen that in movies and on TV
Mm-hmm.
shows, right? Where a head of a family or a gang member might have this very traditional kind of family life
Yeah,
while they have this outside life that is definitely outside the scope of the law, right?
absolutely.
Whatever that looks like. And then there's the culture kind of demands that there's a traditional family. So there's two parents, a man and a woman, there's kids,
Mm-hmm.
there's dinners, there's whatever. And I just, I was thinking about how I've never seen a SWAT team anywhere except for in the media.
Yeah,
I've never seen one in real life, and how few people actually have that experience.
yeah.
So when you wrote me that, I was like, wow, that's, you know, it's, it sounds out there, but it's just like it had to be really surreal to experience.
Yeah, well, I found out that a couple of the people that were at our house were one of the most, America Most Wanted. And they were a
Wow.
high profile murderer. So it was like, oh, well, I know that person as like uncle, or, I know that person as really good family friends, and things happen, but you're not quite sure exactly what's going on. So yeah, it was just, oh, that's why they came to visit. They weren't asking for sugar.
Right. And where did you grow up?
Oceanside, California.
Oceanside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, so you said this before, you said your father was a hardcore gang member, alcoholic, and heroin addict. And then you wrote to me, although he was high most of the time, I never knew him sober.
No.
He did his best to show me how to confront the world unapologetically.
Yeah.
So I want to take the first part of that. And tell me what it was like, because Scott and I are both in recovery, which
Yes.
we both have children.
Yep.
We do not have the story where our children never saw us drinking or using.
Yeah.
We both got sober when our kids were little.
That's amazing.
Tell us what it was like from your point of view to live with a father who was alcoholic and addicted to heroin.
Watching my dad, um, I remember we'd be in the car and my mom would drive and my dad would kind of doze off. And I just remember my dad always had an itchy back. Like somebody give this man a back scratcher, because he would always do this shimmy, right? And just scratch his back. He was nodding off. He'd get really, really quick tempered. When we were disciplined, there were a good amount of times we were disciplined as if we were like one of his gang members, one of his homeboys. It was
What do you mean by that?
Well, he would beat us. He would beat us. I remember my sister, she had a tongue ring, and he literally took her tongue with pliers. So it wasn't like your average, it wasn't like your average, like, oh, I'm upset. This is wrong. This is not what the family does. Like, there was hell to pay. And so growing up with my dad being on heroin, that ability to think rationally, I didn't know any better until I became a therapist. I had no clue that this was, again, not the norm. I thought everybody, was abused. I thought everybody, father calls them, the B word or whatever. Everybody's father would just get really, really upset. And it didn't, for me, again, it was just normal. It was normal to my dad to put us, very rarely would he put us in timeout. It was a beating. And then he would forget about us. Like literally, I'd be in the bathroom going, Dad? And then regretting it, going, oh my God, I just started the timer all over again, knowing darn well that he fell asleep. So there was a lot of that, a lot of money, my mom having to get other jobs for money because money was always gone.
Wow. So he was this way. He was kind of a ticking bomb for you, right?
Yeah.
So you would, or maybe not that, but you wouldn't know which dad you were going to get at any particular moment, right? You could get the one with the huge overreaction to something small or minor. Was he kind as well? What could he be?
Gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was amazing. He was amazing. And I say that in, you know, whenever I go on family trips, I like to invite friends, especially new experiences, you know, taking him to the river on the boat, and things like that, things that other families don't necessarily experience. And the other day we were hiking, we were up in Mammoth this past weekend, and I was like, where did I get that from? And it just dawned on me, my dad used to do that at a
Mhm.
different level. My dad would take a bunch of little homeboys and us kids, right? And he would throw us all in the van, and he would be driving high up to Big Bear Mountain. And Big Bear Mountain, it's like it's a bunch of turns, it's pretty sketchy sober. And so there we would be, and I'd remember sitting on the ground without a seatbelt and I remember just praying, constantly praying, because I knew my dad was high. My mom and dad would argue, and we were all so excited just to get to Big Bear. And so in that regard, I mean, my dad loved family, loved family.
Mm.
He loved us being surrounded by, close friends and being on adventure, so much so that there were times where he would pull over on the side of the freeway and we'd go on a hike in our Sunday clothes. Because why not go on a hike? And there he was, he'd get his tree branch or whatever, and that was his hiking stick. But
Right.
those are like crazy fun. Like, who does that? Who goes to a construction site with cardboard boxes? And that was our version of sledding in the sand, right? But it's just like, it's
Great.
just those crazy experiences,
Right.
and yeah, my dad at times was definitely a ticking time bomb, but he was also like such a big kid.
Mm. It sounds like to me, and I'm basing this on my own experience, that that's probably who your dad was authentically.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Hyde part of it was what would happen when he would, use or drink,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And then who he was authentically was this big kid who loved family
Mm-hmm.
and was like impulsive in a way that was fun, right? Like, let's get out here and go for a hike, like just that kind of impetuousness,
Absolutely.
which I love, right? I love that. So how was mom during this time? What was mom's role in your house, and how did you see her then when you were growing up?
Oh gosh, mom was a fighter, totally a fighter. Um, she made it happen. She literally made it happen. We were in commercials, we were in modeling, we were in pageants, baton. We didn't have money for that. So there,
Wait,
back in,
how many of you were there?
so there's a total of 6 from my dad. So 3 older brothers, 2 from the same mom, 1 from a different mom, and then blood related is I'm the oldest of my mom and my dad, and then my younger sister, and then my younger brother. So yeah, a
Okay.
total of 6. But yeah, we didn't have money to be in pageants or anything. And there my mom was. She would go to the 7-Eleven and ask if she can, put like a jar and a picture of us in our, like, Miss Stars of Tomorrow or Miss Oceanside or whatever it was. And, she got in good with the owner or the manager, and they would collect money for us.
Wow.
She would go to apartments and ask the manager if she could clean the apartments. We would sell candy in front of our house. I mean, she made it work. She definitely made it work. On the flip side, one thing that she would always say to us is never forget your worth. Know your worth. Know your worth. And that was confusing as a kid because, my dad was a ladies' man. So we would get phone calls from other women, and my mom would get in arguments, with these women, or my mom would get in fist fights with these women. There was one time we came back from, my mom going over to this woman's house, and then my mom ran over my dad with me in the car. Like,
What? Wait, whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
girl. Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
back go
Yeah.
back to that.
Yeah. So
So she ran over your dad?
girl, she ran his ass over. Yes. Yes. I
Oh
don't know
my
if I'm allowed to
goodness.
cuss on here, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you are.
yeah.
I don't know how real we're getting.
Oh,
We're
let's
getting
keep it
all
real.
the way real, Veronica. I
Yeah.
mean, like ran him over. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm tripping.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And you were in the car.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, my mom was a fighter. My mom was definitely a fighter. The other thing though is my mom would try to leave. There was domestic violence happening in the home. And she didn't. And that was one thing I always wanted for her, always wanted for her, even before my dad died. I know this sounds horrible, awful, and terrible, for a daughter to say. However, my dad was on a transplant list, a liver transplant list, and he was up in Tijuana getting a full mural back tattoo on the transplant list. But yeah, my mom loved my dad. He was her first love. And so Mom didn't know boundaries. Nobody taught my mom boundaries. Nobody taught my mom communication skills, or nobody even taught her what her worth was, So I will say Mom would get fed up, and there we were, loading up in the car, trying to find my dad, or my mom compromising herself to meet my dad's needs, on several occasions, with losing herself in the relationship. Right. So, yeah, I guess sum it up with saying my mom was a fighter.
I love how hard you describe her going for your kids, like just like making sure that you had these advantages.
Yeah.
The things that she hoped would maybe elevate you, right?
Absolutely.
In your lives. And in a way where it sounds like those things could have been fun, like modeling and pageants. I was never in pageants. I don't know if they were fun or not, but
yeah,
it sounds like it might have been an opportunity for you to just get out of what was going on at home at times, right?
absolutely.
And my mom did the same thing. She put me not in pageants, but in pottery classes and dance classes. And we were so poor. Like she was shoplifting groceries poor. We were welfare poor.
Yeah.
She was a single mom, but she made sure that I had those advantages.
Yep.
And so I grew up playing guitar and, knowing how to fire a kiln. Like these were things that it didn't even occur to me that I shouldn't have. This should have been food money, right? This should be rent money. So I totally get that. And I love that. And so what I'm seeing is there's a mom who is talking like she has these 3 older boys in the house that aren't hers, that she's also raising or helping to raise.
They would come in and out sometimes. They weren't completely in. My middle brother, we didn't see until I didn't really meet him until I was older.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they would
So
come in and
they
out.
exist.
They exist.
But she has this daughter who's the oldest of the 3, you. And she is telling you the things that maybe were never voiced to her to know your worth, right?
Yes.
Like she wants this for you, but it also sounds like she was unable to model that for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So did you, I know you're a therapist now, and obviously you know so much about like marriages and relationships and family relationships. But at the time, did you understand that there were 2 different things happening, that you were being told one thing and having something else modeled for you?
No, I thought that, okay, so she's telling me this, so I should just know how to do this. Like I should just know, like I'm missing something. I need to crack the code. I need to figure this out, but she's giving me these words of wisdom. And so, okay, how do you do it? Like and I remember, trying to do everything to figure out I don't know if those 2 were together, but I remember constantly being that overachiever, trying to figure out like, okay, know your worth. And it just didn't make sense. I didn't know how to connect the 2.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I think, the whole, like the silent generation grew up with children should be seen and not heard, right?
Yeah.
And then there were the boomers, and, you do as you're told. Like that was kind of the philosophy of the boomers. And now I think we're in a place where it is more widely understood that children do as you do.
Yeah.
Right. They don't do as they're told. They do as their parents do. And so it's very important that whatever you're showing them, you're telling them, basically. Like this is how you live life.
Yes.
I have a question about monogamy then, because we're going to be talking about your marriage currently. So what was your sense of a marriage is, knowing that your dad had other women on the side? Did you have a sense that was marriage, that the men would have other women and the woman would have no one else? Or did you think, oh, this is not a good marriage. A marriage should be just one man and one woman, nobody on the side. Like, what did you think?
Great question. Well, I just thought, well, this is the norm. This is absolutely the norm. Especially for me living in a Mexican household. You're always told, make sure you have money put aside, because you can't be completely dependent on your husband. And it's like, okay, well, I can't be completely dependent on my husband, but I don't see anybody getting an actual job. Like, okay, noted, right? There was so many mixed messages, but I have to hide money. Where the hell am I going to get this money from? Like, right? There was all of these mixed messages. And yeah, my dad loved my mom, Laura. Like, my dad loved my mom. He would beat the shit out of Guy if he looked at her. And then he would beat her after. But that's how you knew he loved her, because she shouldn't have looked that way. She shouldn't have caught somebody's eye. Like, my dad really loves my mom. Like, that's literally the message. Like, your husband loves you if he's beating the shit out of some guy or starting an argument or is pissed at you because a guy looked at you. Like, that's true love. That is so true love. Had no clue, had no clue. If a guy's upset with you, yeah, he has full ability to just leave, and you have to stay home and watch all of those kids, and then cry about it. It was just the way it was.
And so I'm imagining if I were on the outside looking in and I were watching you, I would probably give you somewhere around a 10 to 12% chance of being able to get into a stable relationship after this.
Oh, you're giving me too much credit, girl.
Too much of a chance.
You're giving me too much credit. I mean, maybe a 2%. I don't know about a 10%.
But also just getting out, period, right? So you were saying that your dad was a barber.
Yeah.
Like, that was his trade, right?
Yes.
And your mom did not work outside the home. Is that correct?
No. She cleaned houses.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But she didn't have a trade in the same way. She didn't get up and go to work every day.
No.
And even though your dad was a barber, he didn't really pursue entrepreneurship, right? He wasn't like, I'm going to open this business, we're going to franchise, we're going to make this. That wasn't his game.
No.
So what happens when you come along and say, well, I want something bigger. I want to go to school and get my degree. What are your parents? How is that received in your house?
Oh, so beautifully. I remember in high school, I got accepted to this program. It was called Upward Bound. And it was for underprivileged youth that wanted to go to college. And I remember going up to my dad and saying, Dad, guess what? And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm going to go to UCSD for summer. Like, I'm going to go to UCSD. And I remember him looking at me and saying, well, what is that going to do for me? And I was like, oh, well, shit. Okay, well, I guess that wasn't a big deal. Like, okay, I guess nothing.
Wow.
Right? And so, most of my dad's, I shouldn't say the entire, but my dad's side of the family, I'd always get ridiculed. Look at her. She thinks she's too good for us. She's going to go to college, and then my grandmother, and not necessarily my mom's side of, the family, but I remember, just, she's so loud and she has so much energy. Like, she's going to be pregnant, she's not going to go to college. Like, there was so much doubt, and it was never met with, holy shit, Veronica, you can actually do this. Like, no, there's not a chance in hell, and it was always met with criticism.
Yeah. So how did you then make that decision to do it anyway without support?
So I remember being in a commercial. I remember auditioning for commercial, and I remember looking at the crew, I don't know what they call them, the people that are giving us the audition. I remember looking at them, and they were so fat. There was so many kids. They were, that they were interviewing, and my sister and I were in the same, we were auditioning together. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to make this happen. And I'm just going to give them what they want, right? Like, just go for it. And then we ended up getting the commercial. And I remember, like, it was a commercial filmed in Malibu, and I was a witch and my sister was a princess. And I know, right? Gosh. Even then I didn't get it. No.
Right.
Right, there it goes again. No, and I remember there was this. They had this trailer, and it was full of snacks, and it was just for us. And I was like, "Holy shit! Like, I can have any snacks I want." Yes. Girl, I wanted to kick back in there. I didn't care about filming. Like, I was like, take my sister, is this national commercial. So there was also we also had a photo shoot where they were taking, pictures of us for a magazine. And I remember like I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this life happen. I was exposed to something that I'd never been exposed to. Even that house we were filming at, we were only filming out, outside, but I remember asking one of the producers, like, whose house is this? And they're like, we don't know. It's somebody, they rented us the front of their house. And I'm like, well, whoever's living there, I got to be them. And so it was literally being introduced to something new and like just knowing that, wait a minute, this is possible. So how do I get this? How do I figure out the formula?
Yeah, I totally get that. I love that was the source of inspiration. When I was 18, I was never a model, but I did like a gig for King Cobra malt liquor. And I had to dress in this snake suit. It was like a bathing suit and like pantyhose with a snake going down the leg.
Yeah.
And deliver cases of this King Cobra to different liquor stores, and they filmed it, and it was humiliating. But I was there on the set of it, and I saw the producers, and how they were talking and how the women were dressed, and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
I want to do that. This is not the thing. It's that thing. So I love that you were inspired similarly in that moment. It was like the acting wasn't the end of it. What you wanted was, whose house is this?
Yeah.
How do we provide all of this? Where does that money come from? That's what I'm interested in.
Yes.
And I'm looking at your gorgeous office in the background right now and thinking like somebody's going to want to film in that office. It looks like a Zoom background, but it's actually your office. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Scotty noticed it first of all, like as soon as we got on the call. So you make this decision, and now I kind of want to jump into you and your husband and meeting him. So you said, I don't know where you said this. You might've said this on your site. It was on your site, just like you, and you're talking to the reader at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted my husband to grow with me, just like you. I wanted a healthy marriage, one that would make newlyweds jealous.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you meet Willie. Is it Willie?
Yeah, Willie.
Yeah. So tell us about meeting him, and then that transition to knowing that you guys were going to start a life together.
Okay. So I met my husband on the freeway. Like,
this is such an LA story.
Right? I met my husband on the freeway. So I was actually dating a Marine when I met my husband. And one of my friends, she had asked, she's like, how do you meet all of these guys? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take you on a cruise. I'm going to take you on a cruise. I lived in Oceanside, and we're literally right next to Camp Pendleton. So there's a gang of Marines like everywhere. So I was like, we're going to go on a cruise. So I told her, she's like, well, I don't want to drive. And I was like, don't worry about it. I'll drive your car. So I'm driving her car, and we're literally on the freeway. And I remember just feeling like somebody's looking at me. And I looked over, and then we just kept on exchanging glances. And we get up to the end, and there's this red light. 2 cars were in front of me. 1 car was in front of him. And he stopped. He stopped right next to me. So I rolled down my window. What's your name? He asks me, what's my name? And I tell him, and he's like, well, do you mind following me? Just follow me to the gasoline station. I'm like, sure, I'll follow a total stranger. Why not? And so we get to the gasoline, on our way to the gasoline station, my friend, her name was Melanie. Sorry, Melanie. I hope you're married now. So we get, she's so pissed. She's like, you're dating somebody. I was like, girl, he's on a boat somewhere in Japan. We're good. We're good. This doesn't count. Right. And so, I pull over, and I didn't see Willie's face. He had glasses on, and we exchanged, I give him my number, and he ended up calling me that night, and we went to the movies the next night. But I remember thinking like, wait a minute, I still don't know what this guy looks like
Oh,
because he had
stop.
glasses on. So I was like, well, shit. He asked me on a date and I was like, okay. And he couldn't find my house. He was new to the area. And so I told him, this is what we're going to do. I'll meet you at a 7-Eleven. And I end up parking across the street from the 7-Eleven. And so
Little
I'm
recon.
watching, so I'm watching him get out of the car and like going back, pacing back and forth. And did we have cell phones? I think we did. No, we didn't. I don't remember. Something. We did have cell phones. So
Yeah,
I remember,
20 years ago you had cell phones,
right?
but
I
not
don't
smartphones.
remember.
Yeah.
And so I remember being on my phone with my friend. I called her. I was only allowed to date Mexicans. If you're a Mexican, you know what I'm talking about. But I was only allowed to date Mexicans. And he didn't have his glasses on. And I look and I'm like, holy shit, he's Asian. How am I going to make this happen? I can't go on a date with an Asian. Like, I'm supposed to only date Mexicans. That my dad's going to kill me. My dad's going to beat me. And so I'm on the phone with my friend. I was like, girl, I can't. And she's like, it's a free meal. It's a free movie. Just go on a date with him. So I remember actually finally seeing his face and thinking, holy moly, this man is handsome. Like, it was the first time I ever thought somebody was handsome. Like, I never said that. I thought like cute, fine. Like, that was a word back then, fine, but never handsome. And it was just like, uh-oh.
Yeah. What is he? Wait, what?
So he's actually Mexican.
Oh, stop. After all that.
Girl, after all that. So he did the 23andMe, which I'm going to tell you right now, I don't believe because it says he's Indian. I'm like, there has to be some Asian in you. This is a lie. But no, he's Mexican. He's legit Mexican.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. So you could date him after all.
I could date him after all. And apparently marry him.
And apparently marry him. So I love that story. Thank you for sharing that with us. You write that you both came from dysfunctional families.
Yes.
That you were taught to shut down your emotions, keep feelings to yourself, compromise your needs, which you talked about your mother modeling for you to make others happy. Willie, it was love at first sight. You think he's handsome. You go to the movie. What movie did you see? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh. Chris Tucker and Jackie Chang.
Oh, Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. That was our movie.
Yeah. Yes. Love that. And so you have this potential relationship in front of you, right?
Yeah.
With somebody who also came from a dysfunctional family.
Yes. Yes.
And what are you doing for a living at this point?
I worked at a shoe store.
You worked at a shoe store.
Mm-hmm. I worked at a shoe store, and he had just came back from Okinawa. He's a Marine.
Right. And so you also write that you thought love and attraction would keep you together.
Yes.
But you were both wrong.
Oh, 1,000% wrong. So wrong.
So tell us about being 1 month away from divorce.
Absolutely.
And what that was like. And I know we've skipped a lot because we skipped the courtship and then getting married, but I want to get to that and then talk about where you are now and what you've learned since then and how you're passing it along to other people. So tell us about being 1 month away from divorce.
So we had just had our daughter, Aaliyah. She's 21 now. We just had our daughter, Aaliyah. We had her in August. October is when my husband asked me for a separation. And I didn't understand it. If I rewind just a little bit, my husband had become a drill instructor. And so in the Marine Corps, those are the men with the Smokey the Bear hat yelling at recruits. And I remember being told, so after my husband graduated from DI school, that's what they call it. After he graduated from DI school, like that same day, they take a bunch of, the wives into a room. And we have our name tags. And I don't know if it was the colonel or somebody pretty high up. He takes the stage and I remember him saying, look to your left and look to your right. And so all of us are like, hey, we're all excited because, our husbands are now like drill instructors, which is a big deal. And I'm gonna tell you right now, holy shit, it's so sexy, right? Uniforms. Okay. I won't veer. So, I'm looking to my left, looking to my right, and I'm like, hey, so excited. This is 3 years. And of him being a drill instructor. And he said, 98% of you will not be here at the end of the 3 years. And I remember being so offended. Like, homeboy, you don't know me. First off, you don't know my husband. And he
Mm.
was right. He was right. Out of all of the marriages, out of all of the couples, only two of us survived. Us as
Wow.
well as Branch. Yeah. And yeah, my husband, he asked for separation, which I thought was completely ridiculous because I didn't want to have kids at all. And here I am with our daughter, and you're telling me you're going to leave me? Like, we're separating? I remember in the beginning, I literally was on my hands and knees crying, begging him to stay, begging him to stay. And whenever he would call me and want sex, I was there. I was all about it. Um, Eventually it got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't do it. I wasn't going to
Mm.
school. We're living on base housing. I was not crazy far from my family, but I was alone and with a child. I remember going, we're separated for a while, and I remember going to the bank to go pay our bills. And this is back before online and all this, amazing stuff. And I remember being there on the first, and my daughter was in a car seat, and we're waiting this long ass line, right? Everybody's waiting to get paid. So I get to the teller, and I remember, running my card, and she's like, you know, your card isn't working. And I was like, well, just look me up. And she's like, you don't have an account here. And I was
Mm.
like, look at my husband. And then she was such a bitch, Laura. I swear. That's another thing my dad taught me. I was called Mike Tyson in high school. So I was like, homegirl, listen, I will jack you up. So yeah, she's like, she looks him up and she's like, oh yeah, I found him. And I was like, awesome. And I have all of my bills. I just need money orders or checks, right, to pay all of our bills. I'm not like taking everything out. And I have a baby. Um, and she's like, well, he has an account. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. There were more things that happened, but I finally got to a point where I couldn't fight for the marriage anymore because I was the only one fighting. I ended up
Mm.
going back to school. I ended up getting a job. We lived in National City at the time, and I would drive about an hour and a half to drop off Aaliyah, our oldest, and then half an hour to go to work, and then from there go to school. It was back in my undergrad program. And I remember doing that every single day, but still driving my ass back to National City just in case my husband would change his mind. And
Wow.
I'd be finished around 9:30. I didn't see my daughter. I was on the go. Um, and finally it got to a point where it was just like, I'm not going to do this. I was really scared.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking that it doesn't sound like in the culture of your family of origin that divorce was modeled for you,
No,
right?
not.
People, yeah,
People don't. I mean, hello, my dad was cheating on my mom. People don't leave. Like you,
right,
and I
right.
didn't even know my. I didn't. The crazy part is, I didn't even know my marriage was close to divorce. Like, I didn't see the signs. I didn't even know there were any signs.
Right. And what were his issues? Do you mind sharing
No,
that?
no, no,
Like,
no, no. I don't
yeah.
mind at all. I please. So yeah, you're surrounded by a bunch of drill instructors. You're not home. You're not home at all. Your breaks are maybe 2 weeks. Um, One of the biggest issues was not only the way we both were to each other. I was extremely explosive. He would shut down. Like that was our dynamics. I was explosive. He would shut down. And again, this is just the way marriage is. Well, it got to a point where when we separated, yeah, He was seeing somebody um, that was he was seeing somebody that was in a different state. It was in Vegas, and so whenever him and his Marines did have, maybe a couple days off, they would go over there, and I had no clue that was going on, none of it.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah. Um, that's rough. That's really rough.
Yes.
That's you're working your butt off, going to school, working and taking care of
Hmm.
your daughter at that point.
Yeah.
There is no time for you to be a sleuth or a detective and figure out what's
No.
going on. And you don't know what to bring to a marriage at that point
Yeah.
as a partner. right? Because it wasn't modeled for you and you don't have the knowledge that you have now.
Mm-mm.
Although I'm suspecting you're learning because you're in school. So you're probably, putting some more pieces together. But it's very on the job training you're doing
Oh, it's
because
a
you were in
thousand
it.
percent. I didn't know what a therapist did until I actually became a therapist and I was sitting across from a patient. Like, I had no clue.
Yeah. So you don't get divorced.
Mm-mm.
You don't
No.
get divorced. You told me that there was a call. So now this is fast forward 2 more kids that you get. Like you have 2 kids and you get this call informing you that he was blown up
Yes.
by an
So this,
IED.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. Tell
mm-hmm.
me about that.
Um, I want to say we had already had all three. No, we had all three kids, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
All three girls. He ends up
Three
Skype.
girls, huh?
Yes, yes, three
Ah.
girls. He ends up Skyping me, and I get the call from him, and he looks so different. He looks extremely different, like pale. And I asked him, what's going on? And you do get, like, while your partners are away, you do get informed. When you don't get told what's happening, there's this code word, and that code word is used when something goes down in Afghanistan. And so all of the families know that something happened. There was an explosion or a fatality. Like, we're all aware, but nobody knows who it happened to or what. And so, yeah, Willie
Wait,
Skypes me.
sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Willie Skypes me, and yeah, he had him and his Marines had run over an IED.
Mm, mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm, mm. So just tell us kind of what the state of your marriage is at this point when you get that call. Because you
So
had gone from this very dire place with one
yes,
child, and now you're with 2 more girls,
mm-hmm.
and he's deployed. So tell me what it
Yep.
looks like then.
There's so much work that both he and I had done on our own, an extreme amount of work that we had both done on our own, that at this point, I'm able to meet him with compassion. I'm able to meet him with understanding. There's not that animosity. Um, I'm able to allow myself to feel this overwhelming emotion of potential loss, and that's something I wasn't able to experience when he and
Mm.
I were going through what we went through. It was devastating. It was devastating. The one person that I absolutely loved and adored the most, my best friend, I almost lost. And it wasn't one time. He had endured two IEDs.
Wow. Wow. That's something I've only seen in the media
Right?
and never experienced. I mean, obviously personally, but even from your point of view
Yeah.
with someone that I love. I think it's really interesting that these are IUDs that are that he's tripping or getting, they're being exploded
Mm-hmm.
and he's in the way, and that you described yourself as explosive during
Yeah,
that time period,
definitely.
right? So you were also, and you described your father that way, is
Extremely.
also being very explosive. So with these last few minutes that we have left, tell me about the work that you both did. Tell me about how you get to that place where you can come from compassion instead of exploding,
Mm-hmm.
and where he can not shut down and meet you where you are, and then talk about outside the norm counseling and how that works. So tell me about those 2 things.
Vulnerability, complete vulnerability and surrendering. Absolutely. Recognizing that I was recreating my childhood over and over and over again. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I was definitely recreating my childhood because that was what was familiar to me. And then being able to understand that he as well was recreating his childhood. And it wasn't intentionally. It's not something were eager to, recreate. However, it happened because that's all we knew. Once I was able to recognize that I was limited with the amount of skills and tools I had, and communication and vulnerability was like completely disregarded, and it was something really frowned upon. Once I started to realize that I no longer wanted to play games with my relationship, and I wanted to really be in it. But in order for me to be in it, I couldn't do it for the relationship. I had to figure out who the hell I was, what I wanted, what I wanted my life to look like. And I was no longer doing it for him. I was no longer doing it for the kids. It was what I needed. And really, really stepping into who I was put on this earth to be. Really understanding my purpose. That's when things started to change. And once I started to change, my husband started to adopt his own habits and started to do his own work. And through that, we were able to become the best of friends, no longer allowing our past unhealed pains get in the way of us really connecting. And that's something that I do for my patients here outside the norm counseling. I built a group practice. I have clinicians that work for the company, and I'm really, really big on helping my clients step outside of their comfort zone to really live the life they want to live. No band-aid therapy. We're not doing deep breathing exercises and positive affirmations. It's great, but we're doing real hardcore work.
I love that. I love that. Tell me about your clients. Like, what population are you serving?
High achieving women, baby. High achieving women, right? High achieving women who are in that struggle, high achieving women who, struggle. They're in this space of wanting to master marriage, master motherhood, and master their career, but feeling as if they have to compromise who they are in order for them to truly connect with their husbands and their kids. And that's not the case. I'm not saying you can have it all, I mean that's to be defined by whoever wants to define it. For me, it's like, well, what do you want, and how are you stepping into action to make that happen? And if you don't know, then how willing are you? How, I can't even say the word. Are you willing to go ahead and learn? Are you willing to take the necessary steps towards that? Because a lot of people say they are. And then once we get in it, they're like, oh, shit, I didn't sign up for this. And it's like, well, you're right. I'm not giving you what you want. I'm giving you what you need.
Do you find that some people come in, wanting to fix their marriage? You direct them to look at themselves first and see who they are. And they don't know what they're passionate about. And they don't know what makes them happy. And what does that work to help them find that? Like, name something, that an exercise, or I think you said you didn't really do exercises. So name something, a question maybe that you'd ask to help them.
So who are you outside of all of the roles you play? Who are you? Who are you outside of the roles of being a mom, outside of the role of being a best friend, a sister, a wife? Who are you outside of all of those roles? I'm always met with the deer in headlights look.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then so then the work becomes finding out who that is.
Absolutely. No longer blaming your husband. Yes, I get there's resentment. Let's talk about the resentment. How are you part of it? Really helping women identify the issues they bring into their relationship and issues they bring into their life that keep them disabled from truly living and experiencing their true identity.
Wow. That's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I thank you for that work. Your kids you said your oldest was 21?
Yeah, I have a 21, 17, and 13-year-old.
Oh, wow. So you're still a full-time mama too.
Girl.
In addition to everything else.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a marriage that newlyweds would be jealous of?
Absolutely. My husband is my best friend. He is my best friend. He's so sexy. We have so much fun together. Don't get it twisted. There are times I want to shake the shit out of him. However, we have so much fun together. So much fun together.
Well, I love that, you timelined us in this decades-long relationship, but sexy is still one of the first things out of your mouth when you describe him. That's beautiful.
So much fun. My best friend.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Veronica. And I mean, I think I've asked you all my questions. You gave us such great stories. I see. I told you to be multifaceted, right?
Yeah, I love it.
But it all kind of comes down to you were not destined for a life outside of the life you grew up in.
No.
You made your way into a different type of life, And once you were in that life, you still weren't supposed to be the one who could have a successful
Oh,
marriage,
hell no. No.
right?
I should be on welfare with like 18 kids. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and you said that
Yeah.
statistically, you should have 5 kids and be a single mom
Yep.
and be on welfare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
is not the case. That
No.
is not the case.
Mm-mm.
I'm sure that other women who are listening to this and men are going to be inspired by you and want to know how they can get in contact with you. So how do people find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on social media. Hey, Veronica Cisneros. You can go to my website, veronicacisneros.org. And of course, listen to the podcast, Empowered and Unapologetic.
Yes. Yes, please do. And all of that, follow her, check out the website, which is great. I love your website. And I love your podcast too. I love just the idea that you're not that, what's the word? I can't think of it now. It's like when people who want to know your why.
Yeah.
It's not frou-frou. It's
Oh,
there's a word.
no. Way beyond. Way
Yeah.
beyond.
You get down to business.
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna drive the truck right through the wall, get into the
Yep.
middle of it, and really everybody's gonna roll up their sleeves. And I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us. And I'm excited to hear your interview with Scott on Thursday, because I know that he's going to ask you some questions that I missed, or at least give you a male
Maybe.
point of view. Maybe. But thank you so much, Veronica.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Veronica.
Thank you.